In this video I'm going to go through how we can go about creating holes in our pieces on Onshape. So creating holes is very similar to the rebate joints that we've done in the previous video on this particular piece. So all we need to do is mark out the location of the hole first, exactly the same way that we were marking out the location of these rebate joints. So we're going to continue to use our offset tool to select the crossover point or the center of our hole location. So I'm going to do a hole in the top of this, and I'm going to attempt to do it right in the center of the piece. Now you could use the offset tool like I was just saying, and you could measure offsets into the dead center. You would need to know the measurements to find the absolute center. The other option you have is to use our line tool when we sketch. So I'm going to select my sketch tool, and I'm going to click on this top view, this top plane that I want to sketch my location for the hole in. So I'm going to select it. Now, as I said, I could use the offset tool and select the edges, offset in to find the absolute center of this piece. But if I'm working with the absolute center, it'd probably be easier for me to just use my line tool. Now my line tool is this one just here, right? Its keyboard shortcut is L, nice and easy. So you can either click on it or use keyboard shortcut L. I'm going to select my line tool. Now if I want it to be in the absolute middle of this piece, if I drag my cursor along this top edge, if I go slowly along there, alright, I should be able to find the midpoint of the line. Okay, and you can see as I hover over, we get a little box that pops up, and the logo next to my cursor there changes to a line with a solid circle in the very middle of the line. That indicates that's the midpoint of the line. So if I'm aiming to draw lines in from the very center of lines, I'm going to find that midpoint. I'm going to click once. I'm going to start dragging downwards. Now you can see as I draw or start to draw the line, it's giving me all different measurements, and there's a certain point where the line goes dotted like this, blue and yellow dots. Blue and yellow dots just mean that the line we are drawing is perpendicular or square or at 90 degrees to the edge. So if I'm trying to draw a line down the very center of this piece, I want it to be perpendicular or square to the midpoint of that line. So I'm going to drag my cursor along that line until I get down to the midpoint of the other line, which is indicated by that same little marker next to the cursor with the line and the solid dot in the middle. I'm going to click. Now automatically when using the line tool, it stays selected so that you could draw another line from that same point. Okay, in this instance we don't want to draw another line from that point. Okay, that's going to get in our way. So what we need to do is deselect the line tool. So we can either go up and click on it again, or we can press escape on the keyboard and it will deselect that tool. Okay, I then need to select my line tool again because I need to draw a line across from the other side, from there to there, so that I can get that perfect middle point. Alright, the other option you would have to do this would be to draw two lines diagonally. Okay, and that should give you the same midpoint. So I'm going to select my line tool, midpoint to midpoint, and then I have to deselect it. I'm going to press L on my keyboard, and I've now got the very center of this piece is right here where the lines cross over. Now if I want to drill a hole, alright, or put a hole in this piece, I now need a circle, a 2D circle. So up along my tools, I've got my line tool, rectangle tool. My very next one is a circle. Just like the rectangle, we have a couple of options for circles. In this instance, we've marked where the center is, so we need to use the center point circle. So I'm going to click on that center point circle. Keyboard shortcut is C. I'm then going to go where those lines cross over, and I know I'm on that point because a little box comes up. All right, and I've got that center point logo turning up in the middle. So I'm going to click, and like with everything else, as we drag outwards, the size at this point does not matter. We're going to enter that in manually. So I'm just going to click to draw a circle, and I've got that box that's turned up here allowing me to enter a value. So I'm going to enter a value in. I'm going to enter 10, and I now have a circle with a diameter of 10 millimeters. Once we have the diameter selected of our hole, so whatever size drill bit we would be using to drill that hole is what we've made the diameter. So in this instance, as I said, it's 10. What I'm then going to do is tick my sketch to say I'm happy with that location of the hole and the hole size that I've picked. I can then use my extrude tool, like I have with the rebate joints, to remove. I'm going to select remove this circle. Now in this instance, it's giving me these 4 zones. I'm just going to zoom in so it's a little bit easier to see using my scroll on the mouse. I've got my 4 zones I would need to pick to drill the hole. The other option I would have had is in the sketch I could have gone back and deleted those lines that I drew, but it makes it a little bit more difficult if I wanted to change the hole location later. So I'm going to leave them there, and all I need to do is select all 4 of these, and then I've got a complete hole. So as long as I select the 4 segments, I've got those 4, the entire circle, sorry, and I'll end up with a complete circle. Now my depth, it's going to be 19 millimeters because that's how deep the entire piece is if I was drilling a hole through the whole thing. If I only wanted the hole to go partially into the piece, I would make the depth whatever depth I want the hole to go into the piece. So if it was only going in 10, I would make that depth 10 or 5 or whatever measurement you wanted. This one's going to drill all the way through, so my piece is 19 thick, so I'm going to make my depth 19. Press enter. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to select my tick. I'll zoom back out and you can see I've got that hole in the piece, and if I switch to the bottom view, which remember up in this top right hand corner, I can switch to all sorts of views. If I switch to similar view but from the bottom, you can see that that hole is all the way through the entire piece. And that's how we mark and put a hole in a piece in Onshape.